Welcome to Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin, powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Search Talk Live. I'm your host, Robert O'Haver, with Caleb McKelvin, my co-host.
Yo, what's up, Rob?
Not much, man. We got a huge show today.
Absolutely. I hope everybody had a fantastic Labor Day weekend.
Yes.
Everybody got good rest, had some fun, ready to hit the work week back, and we're starting this short week off with a bang here at Search Talk Live.
Yes, we are. If it's your first time listening to Search Talk Live, we are on every Tuesday, 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. All we talk about is digital marketing, whether it be search engine optimization, social media, conversion optimization, content marketing, you name it, paid search, we cover it. And we try to bring in guests every single week that are amazing and are experts on the subject. So,
yes.
And today's no exception.
Absolutely not. But before we get started, you can always be following us on Twitter. You can use your questions, get your questions in. You hashtag Search Talk Live. We've had a lot of good interaction the past few weeks. We always appreciate our listeners doing that with our guests, always willing and able to answer your questions and share their knowledge. So go on Twitter, use hashtag Search Talk Live. We're monitoring it. I'm monitoring it. We always like to get your questions on air as we move through the show.
Yeah. So without any further ado, our guest today is Danny Sullivan, who is the founder of Search Engine Land and SMX. You're a co-founder of both of those, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And those of you, those that haven't heard of you or don't know much about you, can you give us a little background on yourself?
Sure. Long ago, like over 2 decades ago, I started sort of working as a journalist with newspapers, and got interested in the internet and jumped ship to start developing websites, and got interested in search engines as part of that, and then have been writing about search engines ever since. So it's been 20 years since I've been doing it. And, the primary way that I'm involved with it is we, of course, have our Search Engine Land website that we operate. We have a sister site, Marketing Land, that also covers things a bit beyond search, because we think it's important to do that, but also make sure that search still has a good, strong home, and it doesn't get sort of diluted for the people who really want to keep up on that. And then, of course, we have our SMX conferences that we run, and we do those 3 times a year in the U.S., where we try to give people good information where they can learn in an in-person environment.
Oh, very cool. Well, I have a question for you, Danny. I always like to ask kind of veterans of the SEO and veterans of people who have been around for the longest. Over 20 years that you've been in the industry, were there ever moments, or have there been moments throughout your career as far as SEO, digital marketing goes, that just kind of stopped you in your tracks? You didn't believe it would happen? Or are there points where we're at now where you never thought seeing happen? Are you just amazed at where we are right now?
Oh, there's certainly some things you're like, there are both things that when you look on them retrospectively, you're like, I wouldn't have seen that the way it did. And there's things that really just surprise you instantaneously. So like on a retrospective type of thing, the idea that, we walk around with smartphones and are able to perform searches and take actions without that much more difficulty than on a desktop is, astounding.
Right.
I can remember sitting and having drinks and talking with my wife and saying, oh, we need something or whatever. And I look it up and boom, it's ordered, without leaving where we were sitting in like a minute or so, versus in the past where I would have been like, okay, when I get back to my desk, I'm going to launch the browser, I'm going to open up all the windows and, get it all going.
Right.
So, that kind of shift is one of those things that if you ask me when I started doing this, we'll all have these smartphones. I mean, it seems obvious, and I guess you should kind of realize it would be that way, but it's so much more than I guess I would have expected. Especially the search component, right? You could imagine, back when people had cell phones, that someday these phones will be letting us do all sorts of different things. But, to search and find things so easily as they can do, even by just speaking to them. And then you get things that you're just like, did that really happen? And not like when Google announced that they were changing all of their shopping search to be pay or play. pay to play. Like,
Right.
Previously, Google Shopping was like, you'd be listed for free, and then you could buy ads with it. And then they said, no, you want to be listed, that's all pay. And I was like, wait. Aren't you the company that said that kind of thing was evil? I mean, like,
Right.
you literally said evil, not just like figuratively. Oh, like you literally wrote down in your IPO document that this is an evil behavior when other companies that you were competing with were charging people to be in their shopping search engines because of all these bad things. But now it's all right.
Yeah. Right.
That's an example. One of the things you're like going, I thought I'd seen it all. Or,
Yeah.
other things like, when Google had to ban themselves because they spammed their own search engine. It's just like, you're like, you can't make this stuff up.
Right. Right. Well, you've seen so much, just touching on this stuff. You've seen so much over the past 20 years. And kind of the topic of conversation starting out today is the future of SEO. And that's also something that you're very well versed in and kind of hands-on with. And so just kind of getting started, what areas are you seeing right now as far as digital marketing, online marketing, SEO, the whole kit and caboodle? What areas are you seeing that are most rapidly changing in our current environment?
Well, when it comes to SEO, I think the most important area is the production of caskets and funeral services because it's dead. So, no, I'm just joking. It's like every year, SEO's dead.
Right.
And no, it's not.
Yeah.
I think that it's hard to forecast all these sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
Like you can make some educated guesses, but then you have things like, Google having their Google Posts feature where now they're letting people have content hosted directly on Google that they insert into the search results. And you're like, oh, did we know that was coming? And, how do you deal with that or whatever? So the one thing I'll say is the biggest trend, perhaps one of the big trends for SEO remains what it's always been, that things will keep changing and you have to stay on top of the changes. And it's important to be looking forward and trying to assess what are the changes that matter rather than getting caught up with the stuff that doesn't. So, if you're someone who is spending a lot of time, I think, trying to chase what you think is an algorithm change that is going to have a little tweak here or there, you're probably missing the bigger picture, which is, wow, Google just added all these critics review sections.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get into that?
Yeah.
Because that's a new opportunity that has pushed out further the old opportunity of the website listings. And all of that is SEO. To me, the definition of SEO remains that you as a person are someone who understands how people seek information and ensure that you're showing up in a non-paid manner as best as you can. So it doesn't really that doesn't use the word Google, and it doesn't use the word 10 blue links
Right.
or web search, right? None of those are involved with it because in 10 years, maybe Google doesn't exist, but SEO continues because there's still going to be some other place people are seeking and trying to find information. So, things that I think the SEOs, of course, need to watch for, especially now, mobile continues to grow. And Google said now for over a year, it's more than half their online searching. I think that if you are an SEO, I think too many of us continue to look at what's happening with search results and what's being shown on our desktops. I think you need to spend more time being on phone. There's applications you can use that will switch your user agent so you can actually see what it's like. The phone experience is much more dramatic than the desktop experience. I just think it's good to get familiar with that. And I thought it was revealing last year. I did this interview with the head of Google Search, Amit Singhal. He's left now, but here's the guy who's the head of Google Search, and he had spent the past year only using phones, pretty much.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's impressive.
Right.
And some dedication. But I think it's important in the sense that you may get a better experience than when you're using the phone, what it's like when someone comes from your listing into your landing page, what are you doing to them? And how's that experience happening? And how are you treating them? And are there other things you should be doing that you might not get as much in the front of your mind if you're focused on desktop search and what happens when you're doing all that stuff desktop. So I think, obviously the mobile experience is to watch. I think you need to continue to watch these new little experiments that Google does and understand what what ones maybe are worth the risk. I think that a lot of people right now in the SEO space, we should concoct a name for it, but we can call it Google Authorship Syndrome or gas, right? They're really suffering. They're really suffering from a lot of gas. It's very uncomfortable, as you know. But Google Authorship Syndrome, if I can keep
I love it.
that way. People did all these things to support authorship on Google, and we added metadata, and we did all the stuff that Google said we needed to be doing, and then they pulled authorship out completely. Right. It's like, well, we don't support that anymore.
Right.
I mean, you can look it up, but we don't really care. It's like, oh, well, thanks a lot. And thanks for Google Plus too.
Right. Yeah.
So now you have now when you have Google saying things like, you all really need to be doing AMP, I can see people pushing back on, yeah, we'll do AMP, and then you're just going to pull the rug out from underneath this again, and and it's like valid fear for someone who suffered gas.
Right.
You don't want to waste your time on that. But then I think you do have to go back and look at it and think, I don't think people were wrong in supporting Google authorship. I think they got some benefits off from doing it.
Sure.
When Google is signaling that strongly that this is something you should be doing, it's probably something you should be doing.
Yeah.
And things change. And it can suck that things change around, but things change all the time. That's the nature of doing our jobs. Yeah. So when Google is telling you, for example, AMP is the future, we're going to be doing AMP, I think if you're smart, you're doing AMP. And you're figuring out how to do it and make sure that it works for you.
Yeah.
And if you have concerns about how it's working, for example, if you think that it's going to keep more content on Google somehow, or it's not going to provide you the ad revenue and stuff like that, you're doing it, you're getting your experience in, and you're voicing your concerns, and you're voicing those concerns very, very loudly.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also understanding that that's going to be the future. So what do you want to do? Because in the end, you cannot do the AMP, and someone else is going to be doing the AMP. You're not going to stop that train. It's not going to go back into the station,
right.
And then you're going to be playing catch up.
Yeah.
And there's so much that they're putting into it that I don't think you can really ignore it. I think you would be foolish to do that.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you. No, but I was just going to say is that, it is good to be an early adapter, because regardless if it goes away or if it stays, especially with AMP, I don't see that going away. They are pouring tons of development into that.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. You really can't. And I think that's the hardest thing, is that you have to, they're always doing all sorts of stuff, and it's like, well, should I do this? Should I do that? And I think, it's a degree of trying to get savvy enough to think, yeah, they're pushing this in multiple ways. This isn't something I should be ignoring. This critics review thing that they're doing now, for example, where if you mark up your site in a certain way, you might show up in these review boxes. I can see people thinking, I don't know, I'll keep an eye on it. Like,
yeah.
But honestly, if I were someone with content that's relevant to that, I'd be playing with it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be exciting. I'd want to know what's coming up off of it.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I mean, we're all obviously, Google search engines are about providing the best information possible, because I like what you said, is it's all about people are seeking information. They're trying to provide that information. Do you feel like these experiments that Google consistently does is going to become more frequent as they try to find what's going to be the best way to provide users the best possible information?
Oh yeah, I mean I don't even know if they're more frequent. They just seem to be doing so much that it feels like it's the continuing same kind of pace.
Yeah.
So that goes again with the whole, there's always going to be change happening. So yeah, that sort of thing's going to continue. They're always pushing on stuff, always trying to understand what's going to convert people better, what they think is going to work better, and that's not going to stop. So
yeah.
The minute you think I'm comfortable, I've got it all figured out, is the minute you're losing, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and Danny, one thing we preach here on the show too is it's not just about doing it or not doing it. It's all about serving that need for that customer. The person's doing the search, looking for information, is giving to them in the most fastest, efficient way. and not just focusing on, ranking factors, but I mean, focus on the actual, I hate to say this because it's been beat to death, but user experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think there still is that tendency in SEO that people focus on the getting the click rather than what to do after the click.
Yeah.
I think there's good reason for that. I think that for SEOs, your primary job really is to generate the traffic.
Sure.
I mean, this is where you get into these debates where you'll have SEOs like, well, am I an SEO or am I a conversion expert or what?
Right.
And
Yes.
anybody who's had to do SEO already, especially if you have to deal with enterprises or businesses, you already understand what a challenge it was just to get them to do things like, could we make this as a 301 redirect? I mean, like you're way back there fighting with some of these companies, and they sometimes don't want to give you the respect that they should.
Yeah.
To then have to go through and say, wow, maybe we could do this and we could get a better conversion. There's other people who that's actually their primary job, and you would hope that they're going to be doing that. So, I can understand some SEOs are like, that's not even my job. I really am just supposed to get the traffic. But, I think that the savvier ones are the ones that can do it will understand that the conversion stuff is important as well, because it's not just getting the traffic, it's getting the right traffic. And that is traffic that is somehow converting or making your business successful.
Right.
And so if they have arrived there, like we talked about with mobile, and they can't do anything on the site because it's just a bad experience, then it's wasted. And it's also wasted from an SEO standpoint if you go to the degree of believing that Google is somehow calculating conversion rates or bounce rates or success metrics and factoring that into it, which I think many people believe. I certainly think that they're finding ways to do that.
Right.
That doesn't mean, by the way, and they're looking at Google Analytics, and it's like, no, that always comes up, and it's like, since everybody doesn't use Google Analytics, trying to get the Google Analytics data is a really bad way to try to figure that out. They'd have to use something beyond that. It could be they are looking at bounce back off of search results and all, things like that too. But, rather than trying to figure out the exact way that they might be calculating a success rate, and then trying to tweak all that stuff up and then debate whether or not they're really doing it, it just makes more sense to figure out a way to make your site convert better.
Right.
Exactly.
Because if it's converting better and you really are being more successful, then first of all, you've done the right thing for yourself. And then if Google's trying to do other stuff, there's probably a good way that you're aligning with the things that they might be looking at. So, double win.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I guess that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, you can drive traffic all day to a site, but if there's something wrong with the site.
Right. If there's no conversion or providing that information that's needed, that it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're just tuning in, always mess that part up. If you're just tuning in, obviously listening to Search Talk Live, we have our special guest with us today, Mr. Danny Sullivan. We are talking the future of SEO, all things digital marketing. If you would like to get your questions in, please do so. You can email us, caleb@searchtalklive.com or robert@searchtalklive.com. We actually had a few come through there that we'll get to here shortly. Or you can go on Twitter, use hashtag SearchTalkLive, get your questions in for Mr. Sullivan, and we'll try to get those on air as quickly as possible. We are sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can go to robertpalmercompanies.com, check out everything they have to offer. Highly recommend that you do so. All right. Well, actually, let's get to one of our listener questions. Came in through email. It was Cameron. He wanted to know, do you ever foresee a time when social media is more incorporated, has more of an impact on search results?
Good question.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Do I ever
foresee a time when social media is more incorporated or has more of an impact in search results?
That's a hard thing to answer. I certainly think social has come up as an incredibly important new channel.
Yeah.
And, that in many ways ought to be considered co-equal with search.
Yeah.
But I think that when you decide if it's important, some of that will depend on who you are, right? Like if you're a news publication and you make most of your money off of page views and ads, having social be more important in search probably would make sense, because if you're playing the Facebook game right, you can probably generate much more traffic much more quickly for the short term that you really needed off a breaking news thing than, banging your head around trying to, say, play the Google News game.
Yeah.
It depends. If you are a shopping site, maybe social's good if you've been doing especially a good job with Pinterest and everything, which a lot of the e-commerce sites find incredibly useful, and so maybe it's as good as search. But then again, maybe the shopping commerce search is still important. If you're a real estate agent, maybe social helps, but maybe search is more important. It depends on the kind of leads and things that you're pulling in. So that's why I hesitate to say it's more important or it will be important. It is clearly important.
They both have their place, huh?
They do, and they're different things, and the behaviors are different. So the key thing about the search behavior is you have someone who is actively ready to convert.
Yeah.
Or in the conversion process. To whereas on social, it's more discovery. Like, Amazon can tweet all day about specials happening on Amazon. Most of those things are not going to be relevant to most of the people who read them.
Yeah.
It's like going down the aisle at the end of the store, right? Like, here's a bunch of things.
Right,
like,
thrown in your face.
Yeah. Oh, all right, I'll take a candy bar. It's not to say it won't work, and it can be very effective. But that's a much different thing than the huge numbers of people who walked into the store in the first place, went directly to the shelf that had the thing they wanted, which is why they came, and left with exactly what they wanted. Oh, there was a metaphor. So that's your metaphor. Search are the people who walk into the store and know what they want to buy, and social are the people when they leave discover something interesting along the checkout aisle.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect.
Sure.
Yeah, I think and I think the more you're able to understand that and use that more efficiently, the more successful you're going to be. Because I think people kind of misuse that to where they can kind of think social. They can discover those people ready to convert when that might not be the best avenue. And like you said, maybe it's just for discovery or for branding and for reaching them and introducing your content, your product, whatever it may be. So I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Danny, you bring you write a ton of content. So I mean, you guys are using AMP, right, on your site?
We are.
And have you seen any uptick or help in traffic?
I actually need to go back in and play with the stats a bit more. It's hard because it's the way we do it, we have it still separated from regular analytics. So we've been adding up all the figures for our different mobile channels. The last time I looked, which I think was about a month ago, it was still relatively minor, but it's also been relatively minor because it's only kicking in for the news things. Right.
Yeah.
So, we do get lots of traffic from Google News, but most of our traffic, I think, is beyond just breaking news type of stuff and showing up in that one little carousel. So I think that the real question is going to be like what happens when they start rolling out AMP, as they've said they're going to do, in regular search results later this year. Right. That's going to really then be like, wow, did this make a difference or not? And for us, what I'll be looking at actually is, are we maintaining what we've typically done? Did they make this big AMP change and nothing's really impacted us?
Yeah.
For people who don't have AMP, when that change happens, I would very much be looking to say, did this hurt us or not? Because if you go into that and suddenly you discover a drop in traffic, it could be because you're not doing AMP and they're giving preference to the AMP content.
Yeah.
So,
and I wonder if the traffic will stay the same, but your bounce rate goes down. You know what I'm saying? And that's hard to say because on a content site.
Yeah, it's also difficult too because of the way the AMP listings work. They, they load up so quickly, right? So if somebody clicks on it, I mean, if they're clicking on an AMP thing, it's the same thing as if they were going to the website. What is a bit different, and I'm not certain how will play out, is what happens if they want to go to another page. Because like with AMP on news search, you click on an AMP listing, so you go to that news site's AMP page, but you can swipe and go to another news site that was in that carousel, right? So you read the article, and then maybe you continue on the news site, but it's also pretty easy for you to go, in a whole other direction.
Sure.
To whereas with web search, it's like, are you going to make it so that if I swipe, I go to the next listing in web search? Because, yeah, that might have an impact, I guess, on bounce rates more than somebody bouncing back to the page, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
One real advantage is just how quickly the pages load. I think that is a good experience, and it's one of those things. I know, like, I'm on Twitter a lot, and I go to load pages there, and sometimes they just take forever to come up, and I just give up. Like, okay, I guess I don't need to read that, and it goes away.
Yeah. What are your sources? Like, and this is probably a Caleb question, would probably ask you, but what's your daily news feed look like?
Yeah.
It looks like Barry Schwartz. I mean, it really does. We have a whole staff now of people.
Sure.
So I'm fortunate that it's not like in the old days when I'd like be trying to cover everything myself. So my day starts off where I come in and I look at our news budget and see, what's been gathered by Barry as he's spotted and for SEO, keeping an ear out to things that are out there. And then of course we have tips, and we have breaking news stuff or advanced notices that will come in all the time that we're looking at as well. And then, I'm out there on Twitter and on social like everything else,
Mm-hmm.
And you see things that are being shared that way that you pick up too.
Yeah, yeah. Barry's doing an awesome job.
Yeah, he's always spitting stuff out. It's crazy.
He lives and breathes it.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
So let's talk a little bit about SMX and what it's all about, because some of our listeners, I'm sure, haven't heard of it, but don't know a lot about it.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's our in-person conference series. So we publish a lot of information all the time that's out online, and then so that people can read it. But it's kind of like Search Engine Land brought to life. It's a way for you to come and go to sessions that we put together in the same way that we might write an article. Where we have if it's a panel, different experts who are going to be talking to you about stuff that we think will be useful to you, or we have the solo sessions that we're doing, or with the keynotes where we try to have executives from some of the search engines come out and actually answer some questions for people. And the key thing about all of this is that it's designed to make sure you get actionable information. There's plenty of conferences people go to, and it's like, you should do these things, like big picture, blah, and we'll have some big picture stuff, and we'll certainly try to help you understand what's coming and why you should pay attention to it. But we really do have a lot of stuff that's actionable, and it's no joke that I've seen people like getting on the phone or immediately emailing after they come out of a session of stuff that they do. That's very heartwarming. That's what we aim for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I mean, you walk in as a sponge and you absorb,
soak it all up.
Everything.
Yeah.
But it's what was I going to say? Oh, and you also have Bruce Clay that actually has training classes too, right?
Yeah, we have a whole number of workshops that go on in association with the show, and Bruce is one of them that does that. So people, they want a more in-depth experience, or they like a particular person and they want to know more about what they're doing, and that's what they can get with some of the workshops.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Now, I mean, I've kind of heard this a few times. Some people asking, are you going to SMX? Well, I don't think that I know enough about SEO or digital marketing to go. I would kind of be, overwhelmed a little bit. I mean, for those that might think that, do you have to have a certain knowledge, or, if you kind of have the basic understanding and just really want to kind of get your feet wet and really enhance your knowledge, is that something for you as well?
No, you can do it. The two shows that we do, SMX East and SMX West, they're designed for anyone to go to, even if you don't know anything about SEO. In fact, those are ideal shows for you to go to, because with the caveat that you should go to them, and then the first day you should go through the boot camp session, right?
Right.
Because that's designed to bring you up to speed, make sure you understand all the basic things you really need to know about SEO. And then you can go to day 2 and day 3, and you're set to take advantage of the stuff that will be discussed in some of those other sessions.
nice.
If you're an advanced person, there's always advanced content going on. So even though we have have stuff that's designed so the beginners can get up to speed. The advanced people will be just at home picking up all the latest tips and all the stuff. When we put together the agenda, it's like this always this very careful balance of, it's like the worst thing to have to do these agendas, but it's a real careful balance. When you say, okay, we're going to run this session at this time. So what are the SEO people doing? What are the SEM people doing? Is this going to be a basic session? Then, what are the advanced people going to be going to? And so it's really looking to make sure that all the main kinds of people we think that are attending our shows always have something to go to, or something to see, or something that's going to be useful to them, that'll work out, and trying to pull all that stuff together. The difference is SMX Advanced. If you don't know anything about SEO, you really should not go to that show, which is why it's called SEO SMX Advanced.
Right.
And we say that on the page. It's like, we love to take your money, but no, not that much. Because it's really designed to be a place where you are an advanced SEO. No one's dumbing anything down. We talk a lot about I've described it before. It's like if you've ever had to speak a foreign language, and then you're going, maybe you're speaking with someone, and you're getting along okay or whatever, and then you bump in back to somebody else who speaks your native language, and then you immediately shift in this high speed. That's SMX Advanced, is where you can go and speak search natively with other people who speak it, and hear them talk about it, and not feel like you're having to wait for someone else to catch up, and there's no apologies about that. It's just meant so you can dive in and not have someone explain to you what meta tags are.
Right. Yeah.
and beyond that.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So, where are these shows located? You have one in Seattle, which is the advanced, right?
So the one that's coming up is SMX East, and that runs the 27th of September, 8th and 9th, and that's in New York City. Then we come back to the East Coast, and I think it's the beginning of March. We come to the West Coast, and that's our SMX West show that'll happen, and that's in San Jose. And then we have our SMX Advanced show, which is in Seattle, which is usually around mid of June. And then beyond that, we also have our MarTech conference that's in San Francisco that'll happen in San Francisco, which is designed for people who are dealing with marketing technology generally, of which SEO is part of it, but it's people who are really much more into the marketing technology stuff that's out there.
The tools and platforms, right?
Yep.
Nice. You got a question?
Very good. Yeah, actually, we've had a few questions come in. Just remember, you can hit us up on Twitter using hashtag SearchTalkLive to get your questions in for Danny Sullivan, or you can email us, Caleb at SearchTalkLive or Robert at SearchTalkLive. We'll get your questions on air as soon as we can. We did have one come through. It is from Mr. Mason. Said, is SEO more simple than we think? Main technical adjustments aside, should my main focus be content and links?
Well, you mean your main focus should be content, because if it's good content, then it'll attract the links.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not going to happen. I think that ideally, it's all starting with great content. That's the foundation of this SEO house that you're going to be building. If you don't have the great content to begin with, then everything else you do could collapse in a corner and be a mess for you down the line. Assuming you've built the foundation with good content, I'm going to try to run the metaphor a bit more with it from here. I think your technical SEO is the framing. You've built this great content. Now you want to make sure that it's search engine friendly, that you're doing all the right things that search engines can access it technically, including stuff like, I don't know, get through the door, right? And this window sticks. Oh, well, that was bad framing. You should have done it this way or whatever. So all that technical SEO is so important to the job to make sure that that this house that you're trying to build up, and the foundation, and let's say the siding and the look and everything like that's actually going to happen and going to go with it from there. Right. And then I would say that your links and attracting that, it's important. It's ensuring, I think, that when you're trying to figure out how to extend the metaphor with it. There, a party wants to say it's your party invitation or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's important. It helps people discover this great house that you've built. If you've got the links out there, it's your address. It's making sure that they know how to get to you, doing all that sort of stuff. But again, I think what you're hoping is that if you built this great house, that there's going to be enough word of mouth that you're not going to have to walk down the street to try to get people to kind of be linking to you. People are going to actually just point to you, particularly. And I think a lot of that stuff all then falls in within the personalization, the social aspect of it. Mm-hmm. You can go out and do the link building, and there are plenty of people who do, and I think that can be important. But I think that social is a nice shortcut in a lot of ways. Yeah. That if you can have a lot of socially compelling content, then you're going to attract a lot of social links to begin with, which may in turn generate just the regular links that people understand are so important. And you can get into the debate on the social links, by the way, like Google will say, no, we don't care anything about Facebook, never touched it, never looked at it. And if we did look at it, we'd throw it all away and all that sort of stuff. And then you can have the debates on why do the top things on Google correlate with the things most Facebook likes and that stuff. And then you can but are the Twitter links no followed? Or are they not no followed? And sometimes they might be, but sometimes they might not be. But it's kind of like, who cares? There seems to be a very strong correlation between things that do well socially and things that do well on search, and things that may attract important links that Google really does seem to care about. So have socially compelling content, and that may help you with some of the link stuff you're trying to take care of.
Right.
Sure.
But I certainly don't mean to take away from I mean really high quality link building activities. I mean, if you've discovered that there is a website that really does have an audience that's interested in the stuff that you cover or is related to what you're doing. I just bought a patio umbrella, and if I found that there was a website out there that was known for writing about gardening and garden umbrella types of stuff or whatever, I'd want to be listed if they had a listing of those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be a great audience to be in front of, and I think it'd be one of those important things. So.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, just on link building, or you think there's any links that people are still building that really don't carry much weight or really any relevancy as far as rankings go? I see people pushing guest posting all the time, where you get your mention in the author bio and everything like that. I mean, are there just certain stuff that people still go after that you think are just don't really matter anymore?
Well, I mean, I know that there's stupid things people are doing because I get the emails from stupid people all the time. And I mean, it's just hey, you're just it's just stupid.
Yeah.
You're you don't even know what you're doing. What template did you get this from? It's awful stuff. So, and there's people who are clearly getting links like that, and it's not doing anything for them.
Right.
So, then you have stuff that maybe it's not that it's stupid link building. It's just not, I guess, that's smart. That it could be better, I suppose. It's just sort of this, I want to say, spray and pray type of thing where I'm just going to go out there and try to get links from anybody. I don't really necessarily care.
Right.
It's not, well, I shouldn't say it like that. It's like they're more targeted than the typical spam that you try to get. But still, it's sort of like you haven't done any research about who you're asking.
Yeah.
I guess personally, I would far rather see someone spend, a day of research about a particular site to get one important link than spend that day sending out 100 requests.
Amen.
that probably won't get that many links, and if they do, they probably don't count for anything.
Right.
And the guest posting and stuff and everything like that. God.
Heavy breathing.
I don't part of me wishes we could just replace the word guest posting with, maybe contribution. I don't know if the name change would do it, but we have people who write columns for us all the time.
Sure.
We love running great columns. I don't think of any of those as guest posts because they don't show up because someone knocked on our door and said, here's some content for you. we've either solicited people that we think are good, or people who are good have come to us. They've gone through a process where we've kind of reviewed some of their content, and they've suggested the things that they're going to write about, and editors review that. And there's a whole process to produce what we think is really good content.
Right.
I think that's much different than, and I'm sure that some of those people maybe think of it as guest posting, or, other people look at it and think, I want to do guest posting like that or whatever. But, we think of it as, we're a leading industry publication, and these are experts in the trenches, and we want to share their information with you. Yeah. I think that's a lot of words that is different from, I'm going to do a guest post.
Yeah.
And I get those kinds of pitches like, here's 11 things to do this. Here's, it's like, that's, so you're just shopping around content that you're going to have anywhere. That's different. The other thing, like with us, is that we only run original content. Yeah. So if you run it for us, it's going to be original from us. And so I think that if people want to be contributors to places where there is an audience that's important for them, you should absolutely do that.
Have an editorial
doing it. Yeah, and you should be doing it for the primary reason that you think there's an audience that actually cares about what you're saying, and the audience will convert just from what you've written about, if that's part of your goal. Sure. Or that and then that conversion could be as much as, I have an important message about the industry I want other people to know about, and if I can get change to happen, or I can get thought leadership, great, to, I want to talk about what my company's been doing because I just want to give back to other people because I have learned from some people. Or maybe it's like, I want to talk about what my company's been doing because we're pretty awesome, and I want people to, maybe I'll get hired somewhere else down the line. I can document this stuff. Or, maybe I want to talk about what we're doing because I can write this article, and maybe I will get some people who discover our company, and some of those people might be conversions for us, whatever. All those are valid things where you're trying to do a conversion just on what you've written. What's not valid is, I'm going to write an article, and that's going to get me a link.
Yeah.
If that was the primary reason why you did the post, I think you're writing the post for the wrong reason, and you're missing the bigger payoff you could get, and you're going down a path that ultimately could end you up in the trouble that you often hear associated with guest posts.
As well as that content is usually not to par either,
Yeah. Yep, agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. If you want to get your questions in, remember you can use Twitter. Go on hashtag #SearchTalkLive. Get your questions on. We are monitoring that, or email us, Caleb@SearchTalkLive or Robert@SearchTalkLive. So
you have 3 sites really, right? A Search Engine Roundtable, Search Engine Land, and
no, we have 2. We have Marketing Land and Search Engine Land. Search Engine Roundtable is Barry's own site.
Oh, okay.
He runs that separately as all his own thing. And, his focus and what he does with Search Engine Roundtable is he's really just trying to report to everybody what people are saying in public forums or on social. And some of those things will cross over because he's our news editor. So sometimes he sees something people are talking about. He says, hey, this should be a bigger article. We should do something with it from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very cool.
Gotcha. So I gave him a plug there.
Yeah. We did have a question coming from...
he deserves a great plug. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I actually had a question about this. I know Robert and I talked about it for the show, and Lindsay emailed in, said there seemed to be possibly some changes in Google search, some updates. Would you know anything about that?
That many people think there's been some updates and that it's not Penguin.
Yeah.
That's what we've had confirmed so far. With the amount of chatter that seems to be out there, it suggests that this is a big change to their core or main ranking algorithm, rather than it being one of the add-on things like well, we know it's not Penguin because they've said, or if we want to believe them, then we know it's not Penguin.
There'd be a lot more noise if there was Penguin.
Yeah, and then it could be a Panda update, but I don't think we've been seeing the kind of stuff that you hear from people who might get hit by that. So it really just seems to be like a general update that they've done, and maybe a new kind of
refresh or something. Yeah.
A refresh of the main algorithm that's got enough changes that is causing some shaking.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice.
So I want to hear your side. I know you've got a lot of connections in Google and stuff, and I can only say so much, but wanted to ask you what your opinion is on the holdup for Penguin. What's taking so long?
I don't know. It's ridiculous. I mean, I honestly don't know. I think in part it's because they feel like the sites that were hit by Penguin don't matter so much, so we got other things to do. Like Penguin hit a lot of sites that they felt like were very, very spammy.
Mm-hmm.
So with all the things that they have to do, making sure that they go back and find out if the spammy sites are now better and should be restored. I mean, it's kind of like saying, you arrested a bunch of people who, were doing something really bad, and now you need to go through and make sure you get them processed rather than helping the bulk of people who did nothing wrong who need your help. That would be my only guess as to why they don't really seem to care much with it.
Mm-hmm.
It could also be that, and by the way, if you were hit by Penguin, I'm not saying you were bad. I'm just telling you, like, that's probably how Google's viewing it, all right? So don't come back and then say, well, you just said I was bad because I was hit by Penguin. I don't know if you're bad or not. I'm just telling you that's probably how Google's looking at the situation, right? And I'll also say to you that I actually think that if you were hit by Penguin, this thing where we're waiting almost 2 years for an update is absurd.
Yeah.
If you're going to do this and you are going to penalize people for a particular thing, and you're going to say that it's a periodic change, that it happens and you refresh, then actually do it on a regular periodic basis, especially when you repeatedly suggest that it's going to come or we're not certain when it's going to come or whatever. So this weird situation, at some point it'll probably bite them in the ass, if I can say bite in the ass. But, what will happen is someone will get hit by Penguin who's like based out of Europe, who will then like go to the EU and say, Google censored my site for 2 years because they thought I was competing with them in application stores, and it won't have any basis in reality at all like that. But
Right.
Then somebody will look at it and say, oh yeah, well, okay, why were they? And then, but it sounds stupid enough then when Google has to respond, oh, well, yeah, we did penalize them for 2 years. We didn't actually tell them, but we did actually penalize them. And then, well, yeah, we were going to let them out, but we never got around to it because, I don't know, we just don't do that sort of stuff or whatever. But, and then you do sound like exactly the kind of scummy, manipulative company that people want to make you out to be. For other reasons that you weren't actually scummy, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't help you on the big stuff if you're screwing up on the small stuff, because
Right.
that can still help you.
Sure.
So anyway, I think that also that they would like to find a way that whatever they did for Penguin is incorporated into the main algorithm,
Sure.
but for whatever reason, no one's doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
At this point, after 2 years, I wonder if it's even worth it because, it's probably going to be more harm than good.
It could be, but it's worth it. It's worth it, I think, to help people who have actually changed their website from stuff to get them out of whatever, hell you've placed them into, because that's how you said it was supposed to work. So yeah, it's worth it to do that, if only to, remove Penguin and figure all the sites that are out are gone or something like that. It's this overt penalty that they've applied. So so do something with it, or make it more dynamic so that if people have done things to be freed of it, they can be.
Yeah, because you would think 2 years down the road, people have moved on and created new sites and, that type of thing.
Yeah. But then that may be part of why they don't want to lift it, because they just might not, when they've looked at what happens if we do lift it, they might just get a whole bunch of junk coming in that they didn't want. So
Yeah. Plus, I'm sure it's gotten pretty quiet over there since they haven't. Because I know Matt was going through total hell with Penguin.
I'm going to go through hell anytime they would do things that hit a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, though. It's like you will roll out a Penguin update and everything will light up and it will sound like Google has destroyed the entire world. But the reality is practically nobody has been impacted by that.
Yeah.
Because believe me, if most publishers were impacted by that, the lighting up of the discussions wouldn't just be happening on, the SEO forums. it would go broader than that. Most people aren't impacted by that sort of stuff. Most people aren't doing the kind of link spamming that they were going after. And some of the people who did get hit by that totally did deserve it. Sure. And totally glad that they're gone, because it's a lot of crap. So, I don't like that it's taken this long. It shouldn't have taken this long for them to, to do all this sort of stuff. But, again, of all the things I want them to deal with, it's probably not top of my list either. That why don't you fix the thing? Although I do think that, I guess the top of my list would be if you're going to have a specific algorithmic penalty like that, you make it clear to people that that's what's going on. So they know they're hit or not. So like what you do with the other thing.
Yeah. So what is so you don't know if it's going to be out 2017-ish? You don't know any of that, huh?
We don't know. Yeah. No one knows.
Yeah.
I personally don't know that it would come out this year at this point, because they've typically tried not to do updates around Christmas and the holiday shopping period.
Yeah.
But things have changed so much, and that's not always been the case. I think they did one last year, so potentially they could push it out.
Yeah. Are you hearing any other algorithms that they're putting out there as far as that impacts like Penguin or Panda?
We're seeing the stuff, of course, that people are talking about now, but no one seems to know that it's any kind of particular around any particular type of thing. So if you go back to the two things that people are most concerned about, Panda was designed to go after this growth in, low quality content that especially was causing bad PR for Google at that time. So it was like, okay, all hands on deck, emergency thing. We wanted people to stop writing these articles about us. Penguin was going after stuff that clearly was becoming bad that they couldn't deal with their regular algorithm. Then when you look at the other things that are going on, I don't see a whole lot of things where you're like going, well, they need to have a special thing to combat this, right? Or a special thing to combat that. Like, there's not a lot of stuff that's showing up on the radar that I'm seeing where you're thinking, oh, Google really has a problem about blah, blah, blah. So now they need to have some animal thing that will take care of it. Instead, what I think you're going to see them do is continue to deal with the mobile change. And so the real big algorithm change you're going to be seeing, in my view, that's coming is the shift with AMP.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're going to have this change where all the results in mobile are going to be AMP. They keep saying, well, it doesn't mean that it's going to be, we're going to automatically reward AMP stuff. It's just that it's all local, mobile content. And if mobile content does well, then it should do well, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think that you're going to find that if you don't have AMP, you might have issues. So that's what I'd be looking at right now. I feel like, am I ready for AMP?
Do you think
even if I'm not going to run AMP, am I ready to go in case I suddenly need to do it? Because if they flip the switch and AMP really does have a big impact, you're probably not going to then be wanting to figure out how do I spend the next month doing the development I need to have to get it going.
Right. Absolutely. Do you think that there's with AMP, I asked this to Gary, and I was asking, how when Mobilegeddon came out and you had mobile sites versus, desktop sites, and how they were getting a bump for having that mobile-friendly site. You know what I'm talking about? So how does that work with AMP the same way? I know they're both mobile, but does an AMP page get more than maybe a responsive?
They have said that it's not going to make a difference. It's not like, well, you're mobile friendly and you get a bump, and you're AMP, so now you get an AMP bump as well. Right? That's what they said. It's not like if you're AMP, you're going to get an extra bump off of it. Gotcha. I don't know if I believe that. Right? So, I don't know. We'll see. I have a feeling that if they roll out AMP on all these pages, that they're going to reward the AMP content more than regular AMP, non-AMP content. And the reason I think they're going to do that is because that's what they do. When they want people to do something, they do
dangle the carrot.
Yeah, they do. And the carrot is better ranking. And so I kind of feel like they're talking between things. They don't want to come right out and say they're going to reward the AMP content, but I think they're hoping people will look at that and just think, well, I need to make stuff mobile friendly. They say they boost mobile friendly, so this is going to be mobile friendly. So I guess we'll do that. So that's I think AMP's going to have an impact, but we'll see.
Gotcha. Any other predictions for next year?
Not a whole lot. I just keep an eye on what's going on with mobile. I think they'll just keep ramping that sort of stuff up. I do think you're going to see a lot more of this card-oriented type of stuff that they're doing, where the 10 blue links further devolve into these different info cards there. I think you're going to see them do even more stuff with posting directly on Google itself. This podium thing that you can get, where if you search and people can post directly within this weird Google area, I think it's going to grow. And it's kind of nervous, like what's going on. Like, are we all going to have to post on Google? And then what are you going to do with our stuff when we do that? Or,
Yeah. I wonder if that could lead to some, being taken advantage of,
It could do. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like really watch and see, because it's also one of those things that could just go down badly on them, and like, okay, well, now they're not going to do it anymore. So why did I spend my time doing that? So it's kind of, we'll see what happens.
Gotcha. And then do you see any increase in probably sites using more markup, schema markup and stuff like that, hopefully?
I think we're going to continue to see markup opportunities. I think it's probably just going to be very I think it's just going to be continue to be kind of more narrow.
Yeah,
like there was a lot of it rolling out, and then it was kind of like, oh, okay, you're like, what's the next thing going to be? And it's like, oh, I guess there isn't a next thing. So we'll have that sort of stuff, but I think it's going to continue to be very vertical oriented.
Well, we are about out of time on the show. How much time we got? We got 3 minutes. All right. And Caleb had to leave, so.
Oh, okay. Well, bye, Caleb.
Yeah. So, if people want to read your articles, where can they go?
Search Engine Land or Marketing Land.
Okay.
Those are the places that are there. And, I have articles occasionally. I don't write as much as I used to because I do a lot of things now. But we always have a constant stream of content on both of those sites. And if you're into Search Engine Land is definitely the place you want to be reading.
Okay. And Marketing Land covers more.
Marketing Land, love for you want to read both things. Marketing Land covers digital marketing in general.
Okay.
And so we'll cover things like social, cover content marketing, and other areas like that. And what we will do is, if you are reading Marketing Land, if there's something important with search, we will cross-post that over so that you'll know about it. And then if you're Marketing Land, and we think, because Marketing Land is not supposed to be everything but search, and then you have to read Search Engine Land. So if it's search, and we think it's higher enough that a broader audience does need to know about it, we cover it there. But it's Search Engine Land where we do all the in-depth stuff and the big drill down. So you can certainly read them both.
Cool. And people can tweet or get you on Twitter too, right? At Danny Sullivan.
Yep, I'm there all the time.
Awesome. Well, Danny, I really want to appreciate that. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been several years I've been trying to get an interview with you.
Oh, good. Well, hadn't realized, but happy to talk.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you at SMX East, and we'll have lunch or something.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Guys, I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. We are on every Tuesday, 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can visit the show, or listen to previous shows. I can't talk today. Listen to previous shows at searchtalklive.com. We have hundreds of just awesome guests. Danny was another awesome one today. And tune in next week. We are on again next Tuesday. Like I said, every Tuesday, 3:30 to 4:30. Thanks for listening to the show. Bye-bye.
Search Talk Live is a presentation of the Robert Palmer family of companies.